Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best day movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. Whole bunch of stuff to talk about today. We got Clint Eastwood and Bradley Cooper joining up for another movie. Remember the last time they did that, somebody got an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. We've got a new Bond 25 cast member seems to be confirmed. Deadpool hits the second biggest opening of all time for an R-rated film. But before we get to all that, let's go right off the top. And this news just broke this morning. It looks like Sony Studios is in talks right now with Jake Gyllenhaal to potentially play Mysterio in the Spider-Man Homecoming sequel. That's really all the details that we have right now, is that Sony and Marvel are in talks with Gyllenhaal to possibly play Mysterio. So there's a couple of pieces of news in this right there. Number one, that it looks like Mysterio's probably going to be the villain in Homecoming 2. And a lot of people were hoping for guys like Craven, but it looks like Sony's going to be using them in a separate movie and all that kind of stuff. A lot of different speculation about who the villain could be. Looks like it's going to be Mysterio. And it could be Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, you remember recently it was confirmed that Gyllenhaal was talking to Warner Brothers and talking to the director of the upcoming Batman film, Matt Reeves, about possibly being the new Batman. However, he took a pass on it. Now it looks like he might be Mysterio. But let's keep this in mind. Just because they're in talks with him right now, that doesn't mean he's going to be it. We hear all the time that actors are in talks, and then they talk and decide not to do it, or the studio decides to go in a different direction, whatever. So this is by no means any sort of a confirmation that Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be playing Mysterio. He's just talking to them, like he was talking to Warner Brothers about maybe being Batman. It could happen, it might not. However, if it does go through, I'm indifferent when it comes to the character of Mysterio. I know there's a lot of people out there who absolutely love the Mysterio character. I'm lukewarm on him. Like, I don't dislike him. I don't particularly like him. It wouldn't be my first choice for a new Spider-Man movie per se. However, it doesn't really matter who your villain is. It all depends on how well you write the villain in the movie. Jake Gyllenhaal, on the other hand, is clearly a top 10 actor working the business today. Some might even put him in the top 5 best actors working in the business today. He's an incredible talent, and it is never a mistake to add talent. If they were able to pull the trigger on this and actually get Jake Gyllenhaal on board as the villain in the film, that would be a huge move. Absolutely a huge move. Now, it would be interesting because Jake Gyllenhaal, being the status that he is, you'd think at some point he could probably lead a superhero franchise if he wanted to. You'd think if he just waited a little while, either in the MCU or in the Sonyverse or somewhere else, you'd think he could lead his own superhero franchise. But maybe you could make the argument if he really wanted to do that, he might have ended up being Batman. So who knows, maybe he doesn't want to be a lead in his own franchise. Maybe he just wants to play a really good supporting role. Who knows, whatever. Question is, what do you guys think about this? Number one, do you like the idea of a Mysterio being the villain in the next Spider-Man movie? Number two, what would you think about Jake Gyllenhaal playing that role? Jump down into the comments section and let me know what you think. All right, with that off the top, out of the way, it's time for us to get caught up on all the other stuff going on in the world of movie news. Here's your daily installment of the Movie News Feed. First up, the highly anticipated sequel, Deadpool 2, hit theaters this weekend, and the results were spectacular, though not quite as high as some predicted it might be. Deadpool 2 opened with a $125 million opening weekend, which makes it the second largest opening weekend of all time for an R-rated film. The biggest opening weekend for an R-rated film is the first Deadpool at $132 million. Various estimates had the sequel opening as low as $100 million and some as high as $150 million. The film is currently sitting with an excellent 83% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes. However, we can probably expect a significant second weekend drop-off since the newest Star Wars film, Solo, opens later this week. So yes, an absolutely fantastic result for Deadpool 2, although some were thinking it might have come in a little bit higher. I was starting to think maybe it could make 150, but at 125, like we mentioned, it comes in at the second largest opening weekend ever all time for an R-rated film, just ahead of It, which also had a spectacular opening weekend of around $123 million, but falling just short of the first Deadpool. Now, the big concern has always been, What kind of legs will the film have? Now, fortunately, the movie's excellent, so that's going to work in its favor, but we've known for a long time that Solo is coming out the very next week. What kind of impact is that going to have on the legs of Deadpool? Is that going to stop it in its tracks? Is there enough business to go around for both of the movies? We're going to have to wait and see next weekend. Next up, while Avengers Infinity War continues to rack up box office records, Disney and Marvel yesterday announced that the official release dates of both the digital streaming and Blu-ray versions of the film. According to Coming Soon, the film will release July 31st on digital platforms and on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K on August 14th. For its home media release, Target has a special 4K UHD Blu-ray edition, and Best Buy will offer a collectible 4K UHD Blu-ray Steelbook. As of now, no official word has been given about any special features or deleted scenes, if any, that will be included in the various releases of the movies. Now, obviously, when you get a movie that's as popular as Avengers Infinity War, a lot of people are going to want to buy it. But especially considering the nature of this movie, that is going to be the big question. What sort of special features are going to be included? Are there going to be significant amounts of deleted scenes? There's a number of things in this movie, while it is kind of overcrowded, a lot of things that could have been added, a lot of rumors going around of other scenes that were shot that never made it into the film. What types of things are we going to see there? Are we going to see some behind-the-scenes features about discussions that went in? What rationale went into who lives and who dies, without giving any spoilers away, of course? Is there going to be director's commentary? If so, is it going to have both of them? Or are they going to have two separate commentary tracks? Is Kevin Feige going to have a big role to play? When it comes to a movie like Infinity War, I got to admit, somebody like me, one of the big deciding factors about to whether I'm going to buy a disc or not is what kind of special features are you going to have. And a movie like this could have some incredible stuff in it. It all depends on how much they want to put in there. And are we going to get all that extra feature stuff, whatever there's going to be, on the regular release? Or is some of it going to be exclusive only to Best Buy? Is some of it going to be exclusive to Target? Whatever. I really hate it when they split it up like that. But yeah, let's wait and find out how many special features we're going to get. Next up, according to reports, actor Bradley Cooper is going to be joining the upcoming Clint Eastwood movie, The Mule, which is based on a true story. The additional interesting thing about this story is that Eastwood, who is not only going to be directing it, but is also probably going to be starring in the film, which will mark his first on-screen appearance since his 2012 film, Trouble with the Curve. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Mule is based on a 2014 New York Times Magazine story that tells the true story of Leo Sharp, a drug courier for a Mexican drug cartel. What makes the article unique is that Sharp was a 90-year-old man, an award-winning horticulturalist and decorated World War II veteran. Eastwood has reworked the story, with the studio's official logline being that the actor/director will play Earl Stone, a man in his 80s who is broke, alone, and facing foreclosure on his business when he is offered a job that simply requires him to drive. Easy enough, but unbeknownst to Earl, he's just signed on as a drug courier for a Mexican cartel, and also hit the radar of hard-charging DEA agent Colin Bates. Cooper, who appeared in Eastwood's 2014 film American Sniper and was nominated for an Oscar for his role in that film, will play the DEA agent Bates. I have been a fan of Bradley Cooper ever since he had his small role in the TV show Alias. I loved him in that show. And he was always kind of this spunky, up-and-comer actor that you hope good things happen for. But now he is legitimately a powerhouse A-list actor in Hollywood that lots of directors and filmmakers are getting in line to work with, and who's now directing a lot of stuff himself as well. We just recently talked about his directorial efforts coming up on a recent episode of the John Campea Show. The last time these two guys got together, Bradley Cooper got nominated for Best Actor at the Academy Awards. So it's no secret why he would want to work with Clint Eastwood again. Working with Eastwood again on screen, like I said in the story, he hasn't been on screen since 2012. Seeing him on screen with Bradley Cooper could be amazing. The true story sounds great. It does sound like they made some nice changes to it to make it a little bit more screen applicable at the same time. You guys know how I feel. Based on true stories, don't have to stay all that accurate. The number one foundation here is making a good movie after all. But this sounds amazing to me. Great director, one of the greatest of all time. I love the fact that he's going to be acting in again. Seeing these two on screen together, seeing him work with him as a director and actor combo again, this sounds fantastic and probably some early Oscar bait. Next up, One of the absolute best shows on TV right now is the Amazon original, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. The show is a dramedy about an Upper West Side housewife who ventures into stand-up comedy after her picture-perfect marriage falls apart. It took home 2 Golden Globes for Best Comedy Series and Best Actress in a Comedy Series, and Amazon has just ordered Season 3 of the series, even though Season 2 doesn't even launch until later this year. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is one of those shows that I saw some ads for, but quite frankly didn't pay much attention to it. And it wasn't until my wife Anne started watching the show, and I just happened to be in the room doing some things while she was watching it. This show is freaking hilarious. Like, it is sharp, it is quick, and I know there's a lot of you guys don't watch it. Probably most of you guys don't watch this show. It is so worth watching. It's funny, it's crisp, it's smart. It's got Tony Shalhoub from Monk in it. He's also Master Splinter in the recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, and he was, of course, in Wings. I used to love him in that show. Anyway, he plays her father in it. It's just brilliant. The cast is fantastic. The writing is great. It's set in the 50s, but it feels very modern at the same time. Like, seriously, check this show out. You'll get hooked to it immediately. The fact that they've greenlit a Season 3 long before Season 2 even airs kind of says what kind of confidence they have in the show. I expect this show to be around a while and probably pick up a couple of Emmys as well. And finally, one film that has certainly had a lot of controversy and uncertainty surrounding it is the 25th installment of the James Bond franchise. It was unknown who was going to direct it, unknown what it was going to be about, and unknown who was even going to play Bond, as many speculated that Daniel Craig was done playing the spy. However, today is a lot more, even if not completely, clear. We now know that Academy Award-winning director Danny Boyle is helming Bond 25, and we know that Daniel Craig is indeed returning. Now it looks like another cast member is returning in the form of Q himself, Ben Whishaw, who recently said the following: "I believe I'm contracted to be in it. That's as much as I know. I was thrilled when I read that he, Danny Boyle, was going to be doing it. I can't think of a better, more exciting director for Daniel Craig. For the way that he's taken the character, I think it'll be really exciting to work with him. I've been such a big fan." Ben Whishaw is one of those guys who have been like a really pleasant surprise with the way he came in and took over Q. He plays this great iconic character, but is clearly a different person now, and he's brought a lot of life and uniqueness to the character that was not present in the Q characters that we've had before. Now, Ben's also had a little bit of an up and down last little bit. Now, we've seen recently a trailer for Bohemian Rhapsody, right? With Rami Malek is going to be playing the lead role in that. Well, before that, a lot of people know that Sacha Baron Cohen was supposed to play the lead in Bohemian Rhapsody. For years, that was the plan. Then he left, and then Ben Whishaw was supposed to play the role. A lot of people forgot about that. Then that fell apart, and then eventually went to Rami Malek. So it's nice to see him. He thought he's going to be reprising his role in James Bond 25. Hopefully this does work out, because like I said, while it's usually a relatively small role, I think he adds a lot to the overall films of the James Bond projects that he's been a part of up to now. So I'm happy to see him back if he is indeed back. And that'll do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. And now you are all caught up to date on all the stuff going on in the world of movie news. So now let's go over to the main topics as submitted by you guys. How do you submit a topic or question to be on The John Campea Show? It's simple. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. All right, let's get things started with the first emailed in topic today. And that comes to us from Tyler Moodley, who writes, "In my area, there are a couple of Landmark cinemas and a couple of ciniplex theaters." You must be in Canada. "I go to Landmark since I can reserve my seat through the Atom app. I decided to check the Cineplex app for Deadpool 2, and to my shock, it asked me if I would like to reserve my seats for $8 a seat on top of what I was paying for the ticket. This really ticked me off, and I was wondering what your thoughts on this are." Okay, so you guys know it's kind of been one of my little personal crusades over the past 8 years that all movie theaters in North America should have reserved, pre-assigned seats. That you should be able to pick your seats when you buy your tickets, because you get to do that for everything else. Everything else you buy tickets for, you get to pick your seats for. Whether it's concerts, sporting events, whatever, you know what seat you're getting when you buy your ticket. This notion, and by the way, I love Cineplex theaters. They're the theaters that I always went to in Canada. I have a vested interest in this because I would love to work with Cineplex in the future whenever I move back to Canada. However, this is stupid. This is absolutely stupid and is once again an example of the movie theater industry being completely short-sighted and failing to look at the big picture and look at potential things for long-term success. Look, where I live in LA, and it's growing more and more popular, so fortunately, or hopefully where you live too, you buy your ticket, you get to pick exactly what seats you get, and you don't have to pay an extra cost for that. You just get to pick your seat. And if there's no good seats available, well, now you know in advance, hey, there's no good seats available, and I can look at a different showtime and find a showtime that has seats that I want to sit in and that I want to purchase. This idea that Cineplex and probably some other theater chains as well are kind of embracing of pay an extra surcharge to get the special reserve seating. That's a neat idea for making a quick buck right now. But this industry is facing a crisis where fewer and fewer people are going to the movies each year. And you ain't going to fix that problem by going, oh, you want some reserved seats? We'll set certain seats aside that can be reserved and you pay an extra premium for that. Yeah, you'll make a quick buck right now, but you're doing nothing to increase the quality or the enjoyment of the film fan and their movie-going experience. Get rid of this bullshit policy. Just make it simple. All our seats are pre-assigned seats, and when you buy your tickets, just pick which seats you want. When you buy them here at the theater or when you buy them online in advance, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Yeah, you won't make the extra quick buck like you will right now with charging extra for some reserve seating. But what you will do is create a better movie-going experience for people that will pay off more in the long term. In the long term, you will profit more by making it a better experience for people. And I can't believe that a company that I admire as much as Cineplex Cinemas is acting like such idiots on this. I just shot any chance I have of ever working for them in the future. I get it, but I gotta call it like I see it. This is stupid, and they're acting like idiots. And this is only going to perpetuate the problem of more and more people being turned off going to the movies instead of making it a more welcoming, easy environment for people to come in and come enjoy. Again, the movie theater industry thinking short term, how can I compensate and make a couple of bucks right now, instead of thinking long term, how do we fix this problem of fewer and fewer people wanting to come out to our theaters? It was nice having the dream of working for this company while it lasted, but I guess that's shot now. Okay, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Critical Movie Fan, who writes, people have been clamoring for more diversity in Hollywood. Now that we have 3 female lead Star Wars films, one of them having a Vietnamese actress, and 2 female superhero films happening, Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, people are saying there is too much SJW in Hollywood. What do people want? Well, look, the basic line here is this, remember the show V, like the miniseries? You may have seen it rewound. Like, I was just a kid when it originally aired, but it's about these aliens who come to Earth. They look like they're human, but they're really just masked, and they're actually these lizard creatures underneath, and they like to eat rats, okay? So if you don't know who a V is, who one of the V aliens is, you can get them to tip their hand by going, who thinks rats are delicious? And if they lift their hand, they kind of tip their hand. There are still a lot of racist, sexist, homophobes in our community. And if you want a great way, and they look just like us, if you want a great way to tip their hand, who thinks it's dumb that they actually put a woman in a lead? They just tip their hand. They just tip their hand. Here's the funny thing. I told a story about this before, but I reposted the tweet about this. I got into this Twitter discussion not long ago, right? With somebody who's talking about, Captain Marvel was coming out and they just did a Black Panther movie. So you got a female lead superhero, an African-American lead superhero movie. And this guy on Twitter engaged me. He's like, Disney is just a political machine for the social justice warriors, SJW. By the way, if you want an idiot test, whoever uses that phrase is an idiot. But anyway, SJW, blah, blah, that's all just propaganda, blah, blah. And I said, whoa, time out for a second. Time out. Just time out. Marvel just put out 17 films in a row with white male leads. Was that an agenda? Was that an anti-African American, anti-woman agenda? No. Okay. If 17 films in a row with white male leads was not an agenda, and I agree with you, it wasn't an agenda, I agree, then how is 2 films in a row, or not even in a row, how is 2 films, one with an African American lead, one with a female lead, how is that an anti-men agenda? Like, if you're going to say 17 MCU films in a row with white male leads isn't an agenda, how do you say one African American one and one female lead is somehow an agenda? It's tipping their hand. They just showed what they really are. Look, some people are saying, and this is how I feel about this truly and honestly, some people are saying that there is an agenda right now, whether it's any of the big studios, whether it's Sony or whether it's Disney or whether it's Warner Brothers because they put out Wonder Woman or whether it's whatever. Some people think there's this big agenda to, do nothing but female lead movies and people minority lead movies and all this kind of stuff. And to what I say to that is, no. If you're going to whine about 3 Star Wars films in a row with female leads, how come you weren't complaining about the 6 Star Wars films in a row with white male leads? There's not an agenda in Hollywood today. What there is a movement to stop the agenda of everything's got to be white male leads. There's not an agenda out there. It's like, women need to rule everything and men need to be their servants. Well, like, just look in what's the movies coming out right now. The vast majority are white male leads. And there's nothing wrong with that either, but I'm just saying that there is no agenda movement in Hollywood. The only thing that looks like an agenda is that there's a movement right now to stop the unfair treatment of women and minorities. That's all it is. It's a movement to stop unfair treatment, to stop. There's this movement to stop the anti-equality movement. And that's what there is right now in Hollywood. There's an at least in the fandom, there's an anti-equality movement in the fandom. That whenever, a woman is showing her face instead of just her tits, which is what some of these guys want, that's all they want, they will just tip their hand that they're anti-equality. Because make no mistake, no matter how many movies Hollywood puts out, whether it's superhero movies, whether it's Wonder Woman, or whether it's Captain Marvel, or whether it's a Black Widow movie, or however many movies they put out that have African American leads, whether it's a Black Panther or a Creed or whatever, there's always going to be far more that are led by white male leads. And it's not it's not a thing of math. It's really disconcerting to me as a human being when I finally see just somebody making some attempts at having some equality, some representation, 17 Marvel films in a row, all white male leads, finally get one with an African American lead, great. Finally get one with a female lead, great. And seeing how triggered these insecure white male pansies are about, oh my God, there's a movie without a white male lead. I can't handle this. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. And again, this isn't a matter of having one opinion or another. Racism and sexism is not an opinion. Racism and sexism is a cancer. It's not an opinion. This isn't about having differences of opinion. Racism is not an opinion. Racism is a cancerous state of mind. And this whole idea, just seeing how much anti-equality movement there is amongst the fandom right now. How much some people and what extent some people will go to make sure we never have anything that looks like equality. Keep women in their place. Keep those black people in their place. Keep those Latinos in their place. Like, it's really disheartening to see, but I guess we should have expected it. That when Hollywood starts making strides to saying, hey, you know what? Not everything we put out has to be white male leads. Sure. And I'm saying this as a white male. I love white male leads. Go white guys. But at the same time, as soon as we start seeing Hollywood making some steps into being a little bit more inclusive, having a few more female lead roles, having a few more minority roles, stuff like that, it's not a coincidence that as soon as we see Hollywood taking steps in that direction, we start seeing this anti-equality movement within the fandom reacting and getting triggered and start attacking anybody that thinks women have a place in movies, or starts thinking black people have a place in movies, or start thinking Asian people have a place in movies. As soon as Hollywood starts taking steps in the right direction, you're going to see, even though, hey, 17 white guy-led films in a row versus a couple that aren't, and you're going to see this side get really triggered. And like the V guys, when you say, who thinks rats are delicious, they're tipping their hands. And it's discouraging. It's one of the really discouraging things that I see in movies today, and very prominently we're seeing it happen in Star Wars circles as well. And it's one of the things that makes it really disheartening, really discouraging to see this sort of thing is happening in 2018. It's really sad, but it's a part of reality. All right, let's move on to the final email question of the day. And the final emailed in question today comes to us from Holly, who writes, "Hey John, big fan from the UK. Oh, thank you so much, Holly. Thank you for all the awesome work you do. A new Batman prequel TV series has just been announced. How much do we know about it already, and how do you feel about it?" Well, technically speaking, it's not a Batman prequel. I guess, though, in a way. So for those of you who didn't hear, it was just announced that they are developing, and the guys, and I think one of the main guys behind Gotham, they're now developing an Alfred show. Yes, a show based on the younger life of Batman's butler, Alfred. And no, it's not connected any way to Gotham, and it's not connected in any way to the Alfred we see in Gotham. This is a new incarnation, a new story. It's going to be a new actor and all that kind of stuff, telling the stories. I believe it's going to go back to his time as a soldier or whatever. I can't remember all the details, but they're talking about doing a show about Alfred Pennyworth. And unfortunately, I can't remember this actor's name. He's one of the things I really like about Gotham. And I'm hit or miss on Gotham, but he's one of the things I really like. He plays a great Alfred, and I love that Alfred incarnation. But again, I've already seen some people online confusing the notion that, oh, this guy's getting his own show, and he's not. It's going to be a completely different actor. It's going to be a completely different timeline. It's going to be a completely different reality, but it's going to be about Alfred Pennyworth. How do I feel about it? Honestly, I don't know. But because on the one hand, you'd think, seriously? They're so desperate for Batman content without Batman that they're going to make a show about his butler? But on the other hand, you know, hey, if you can make a movie about plastic building blocks, Legos, and make something fun and entertaining around that, which was another Warner Brothers property, if you can make something magnificent out of that, then there's nothing to say you couldn't make something magnificent out of this. So on its surface, I'd say you could probably come up with something better to do a show about. However, that doesn't preclude it from being something awesome if they can come up with the right idea, come up with the right script, and really nail it. It could be really entertaining. So maybe it'll be better than Gotham, which wouldn't be all that hard. But anyway, let's just wait and see how that all kind of turns out. Okay, with that out of the way now, I got about 10 minutes left here. I'm going to take some live questions that you guys have been sending in. So let's get over to the live questions right now. Daryl Best Wadley writes, "Watch Cobra Kai, great show, made me root for Johnny. I tried it, wasn't for me. I watched 3 episodes. I watched the first 2, and then Ann and my friend Ryan were over here, and they were watching episode 3, so I sat down and watched with them. I'm still not on board with it. It just doesn't work for me, which is fine. Hey, all entertainment's subjective. It'll hit you some way. It'll hit another person the other way. Didn't work for me. So I'm glad you like it. That's awesome. It just, I didn't find it to be that good, and it's not for me." Josh Creighton writes, "If you were owner of a restaurant and had it themed to a movie, but you can't use any Disney property, what would it be? I would have the Caddyshack as my theme. The Gopher would be in my restaurant." I wouldn't go with Caddyshack. There are too many golf clubhouse restaurants already that feel. I would do a restaurant themed on Shawshank Redemption. I would do a restaurant that feels like a prison cafeteria. And when you go to the bathroom, you have a 5% chance of getting shanked. There's like some bathroom attendant in there with a comb that's been filed down to look like a shank. That would be my theme, a Shawshank Redemption themed restaurant. Michael Ginyard writes, "If you can go back in time to witness a historical event, what would it be?" Oh, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Off the top of my head, it would be the Paul Henderson goal against the Soviet Union in the 1972 Canada-Soviet Summit Hockey Series. But again, don't hold me to that. I'd have to think about it. Michael follows it up. "Which female bodyguards would you like to protect you? Asgardian, Wakandan, or Amazon?" Oh, easy. Asgardian. Simple. Asgardian. The Wakandan warriors, very lethal warriors. The Amazonians, they're not all Wonder Woman, but they're very lethal warriors. Asgardians are all superpowered beings when they're on Earth. Like, they're massively superpowered beings, so that's easy. I'd go for the Asgardians for sure. Donaldo Martinez writes, I've been building a 4K collection over a year now and recently came across Bridge on the River Kwai. I've been told many times it's great. Shall I get it? Well, yeah. It is one of the greatest films. It's in my top 10 all-time favorite films list is Bridge on the River Kwai. So absolutely get that. Whether you get it in 4K or not is irrelevant to me. I'm not that big of a fan of 4K, but you definitely need to have that film in your collection, one way or the other. It's definitely one you got to have in your collection. And you see the great Alec Guinness in that film. Before he was Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alec Guinness was in that all-time classic film. Zizu writes, I saw Cargo over the weekend. Cargo, for those you don't know, is a new film on Netflix starring Martin Freeman. It's a zombie apocalypse film where he's a dad who's been bitten and he's only got like 24 hours left before he turns into a zombie, and he's got a baby. So he's got 24 hours to try to get his baby to safety before he turns into a zombie. It's an interesting premise. I saw Cargo over the weekend and really enjoyed it. Martin Freeman is great. Kept me on the edge of my seat. Definitely worth checking out. You know, I'm hearing enough people say that. I wasn't going to bother with it, to be honest with you. But I'm hearing enough people like yourselves, Zizu, kind of saying that they're enjoying it. So I think you just pushed me over the edge. I'll probably take some time in the next couple of days, sit down and watch that. Jerome Lim writes, 1 year ago today in Las Vegas, Golden Knights history. They probably just had some meetings about team colors. Go Knights. Yeah, for those who know what's going on, like something that has never happened in the world of sports ever has just happened. An expansion team. The Las Vegas Golden Knights, an NHL hockey team, this is their first year in existence, made up completely of throwaway players that other teams didn't want. And this is their first year, and they just won last night to get into the Stanley Cup final. This has never happened in sports history, where an expansion team has made it to the championships. It's never happened. It will probably never happen again. This is something you make a movie about. A professional sports franchise expansion team made up completely of throwaways that other teams didn't want, and they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, I don't know that they can beat Tampa Bay or Washington Capitals, whichever one of those other two teams gets into the finals against them, but just the fact that they made this run is absolutely incredible. And again, something you could absolutely make a movie about that. Josh Crichton writes, is it me or have others out there as well who would agree? I feel like movies should be touring, just like bands. So when you see a movie, it's a special event as opposed to seeing it in theaters or seeing it multiple times. Thoughts? Oh, ridiculous. No, that's nonsense. Josh, that's absolute nonsense. So basically, nobody would make movies anymore because you couldn't make money. If you say, take Avengers Infinity War, right? That's going to make $2 billion. If you only had it playing in one city at a time, take that $2 billion and make it $105 million. From $2 billion to $105 million. You just take a movie and go on tour with it, and it only plays in one city at a time. Movies can't make any money. There's something romantic about that notion. Sure, I'll give you that. But it's a completely ludicrous notion because it has no basis in financial reality. Movies make money because they're playing in 500 different markets all at the same time continuously for a month or more. That's how they make their money. You put it on tour, one city for 1 week and then another city for another week, it makes no money. It absolutely just makes no money. So no, a romantic idea, yes, it's a romantic idea, but one completely with no foundation with any reality whatsoever. Hunter Paget writes, showing of 2001 in 70mm IMAX are right now, and the closest one is 7 hours away. I live in Georgia, and they aren't showing it in Atlanta, Alabama, Tennessee. I am pissed. Well, I mean, we talked about this the other day. Actually, somebody brought up, Hunter, this exact same topic the other day that, 2001 Space Odyssey is playing in 7mm, fully restored in a bunch of theaters around the country, or at least a small handful of theaters across the country. But it's not everywhere. And so not everybody's getting a chance to see it. Unfortunately, the reality is that a lot of times putting these classic films back in cinema don't actually make much money at those theaters, and it costs them a lot of money to put them in theaters. And what they were finding out, like recently they did Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I believe in the re-release, they actually ended up losing money on the re-release. Because it costs a lot of money to put these things out, book these theaters, put them out there, market the events, all that kind of stuff. And the sad reality is they don't make a ton of money normally. There are certainly exceptions. Obviously, there are exceptions. But I think for them, it was just a financial thing. It's like, okay, we can invest this much money into putting it out. So with this much money, we can put it into X number of theaters. Let's pick the markets that is most likely to get their biggest audiences and go that way. But who knows, man? Like if they all sell out in the theaters they are playing in, they might reconsider and go, hey, maybe we should widen this. Maybe we should put this in some more theaters. It's all going to depend on how they do with where they're at. All right, just time for a couple more quick ones here. Henry Gomez writes, The Sun is reporting that Mysterio is the main villain in Spider-Man 2, Gyllenhaal and Gosling in contention. I guess you wrote that before we started the show because we addressed that right off the top. Raymond Verada writes, Gyllenhaal in talks to play villain in Spider-Man 2. Marvel is stealing the Batman or potential Batman to play villains. I know it's work for actors. Well, no. Let's make no mistake here. This wasn't a case of Jake Gyllenhaal or anybody else going, oh, I have two options right now, Batman or Mysterio. I'm going to pick Marvel. That's not what happened. I think Jake Gyllenhaal, he was in talks for Batman, and I think he just ultimately decided against it. For whatever reason, he just decided against it. I don't think that has anything to do with things Marvel. This notion that he's rejecting DC for Marvel, I don't think that's reality. I think if there's anything involved, it probably more has to do with, hey, if I sign up for Mysterio, I get to play a really cool character and be in a comic book movie, but it's only a one film commitment because they're probably going to kill me at the end of it. So I get to go in, do one movie, great. Whereas if signing up for Batman, that's a different thing. Signing up for Batman, you got to sign, like Warner Brothers would want to sign you up for like a 3 or 4 or 5 film deal. And maybe you don't want to do that for 3 or 4 or 5 films. Like we saw Joaquin Phoenix walk away from Doctor Strange because he didn't want to sign a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 film deal, right? So I do not believe at all this is a case of Jake Gyllenhaal goes, ooh, I don't want to work with DC. I'd rather work with Marvel. I don't think that's the case here at all. I think it's just they're two very different roles. They're two very different sets of circumstances. And we don't even know if he's going to be Mysterio at this point. Just because he's in talks and he's talking to them about it doesn't mean he's going to do it. And if it does do it, it's not because he's choosing Marvel over DC. It's because he's choosing, hey, this role, villainous role, which I did once before, kind of with a Nightcrawler, and I got lots of awards buzz, even though I didn't get any nominations. I got lots of awards buzz, and it's only a one film commitment, so I don't have to commit to it for a long time. That, as opposed to this other role, which is lead role, I got to sign up for 5 films, blah, blah, blah. It's that. It's not choosing DC or Marvel over the other. It's just the role. It's probably just a role that appeals to him a little bit more. Let's see. Jay Bling writes, what do choirs actually sing in movie scores? Whatever the composer has for them to sing, Jay Bling, I guess. The Incredible Hulk writes, hi, John. Thoughts on the new Thundercats cartoon? Fans are mad. Yeah, I've been reading about that. I know nothing about the new cartoon, though, to be honest with you. I know absolutely nothing about it. I've heard that there are people upset about it. But honestly, I've never invested a lot of time into really looking into it or seeing what the big deal is. So I have heard that, Hulk, but I have no thoughts on it because I haven't looked into it at all. So I can't give any kind of opinion on that. James Kenneth writes, as we... there we go. James Kenneth writes, White Pants joke in Deadpool 2 is referring to his baby gravy, because he's excited to see Juggernaut. White matches white. Yes, yeah. So for those of you who missed that, Ann and I did a Deadpool 2 spoiler discussion yesterday, and I said, by the way, I didn't get the joke about the white pants, and then I had like 5,000 people tweet me and email me what the white pants joke was referring to. Michael Garcia writes, could Lion King break the Avengers box office record? No, I don't see that happening. I think it's going to do huge. I think it's going to do great business. I think it's going to be a monster hit. I don't see it breaking the Infinity War record, though. William Roos writes, which movie is going to bomb the most this summer? No, I'd have to sit down and look at a full list of films, so I don't know off the top of my head. Ryan Flicker writes, is Gyllenhaal joining Spider-Man 2 as Mysterio? I mean, it's impossible to say at this point. All we know is that they're in talks, but anything can happen. I do know this. It would be great for Sony to get him. It would be great for Sony to get him. So let's see what actually happens. Game Wincam writes, the Hollywood Reporter confirmed now Jake will be playing Mysterio. I'm not sure about that. I just heard he's in talks, but I'll double check that to see maybe if they're confirming it now or not. But if it is, it's a great move for Sony to get him for sure. I Do Monologues writes, best franchise crossover that would never happen. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Begina writes, thoughts on Don Cherry, Hockey Night in Canada. Oh, Reverend Don Cherry. I love Don Cherry. He is the all-time godfather of hockey. Mike Myers does a great Don Cherry impersonation in the movie Mystery Alaska. Check it out. I love Don Cherry. Last couple ones here. Josh DeRose, imagine if film studios drafted actors. It would be in the reverse order of box office standing. I'd buy Disney jersey with Holland on the back. That's actually a really cool idea, doing a draft, a mock draft for film studios with talent, directors, actors, producers you got to pick and stuff like that. That would be a great fantasy thing to play. That's a great idea, Josh. Final question today. Brandon Lawrence writes, I've never been charged extra by Cineplex to buy assigned seats days or even weeks ahead of time. I always use a website and just tried the app, no charge. Yeah, see, I had never done that either myself, but then I looked it up after I got that email, and there are Cineplex theaters that do charge you extra for reserving certain seats, and they'll only have like certain seats that you can reserve in advance, and you got to pay an extra surcharge for that. I thought, oh my God, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. But anyway, hey, again, theater industry being short-sighted as always. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, don't forget, make sure you click that subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel, share this video around, become an evangelist of the show. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you follow me on Twitter, simply at John Campea. And one last thing, guys, if you enjoy my shows and that I do, and by the way, at 2 p.m. today is open mic, so taking lots more live open questions. But if you enjoy my programming, do me a favor. Head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter, how being a Patreon supporter keeps the show on the air, and the benefits there are being a Patreon supporter. And by the way, as many of you guys know, I decided to cancel my Star Wars talk show. I got a few of my Patreon supporters emailed me, and I don't know if they talked to each other or if they just both had the idea, but a couple people emailed me and say, John, you should keep doing Star Wars talk, but just do it for your Patreon supporters. I thought, you know what? That's not a bad idea. So I'm thinking about continuing doing my Star Wars talk show, but making it a Patreon supporter exclusive show. I'll think about that. Give me, you guys, your input and let me know what you guys think on top of all that. All right, guys, that will do it for me. My name's John Campea. Thanks for joining me. And until later this afternoon, bye-bye.